Do power lines and electrical substations make good neighbors? I'm Allison Warnerowski with the W Real Estate Group, and we get questions from clients all the time about power lines and substations. After talking with an engineer from a local power company, I've got the inside scoop for you, and I'll reveal my biggest key to avoiding impacts from these facilities. In simple terms, there are two different classes of power lines: transmission, which are the really large, high voltage lines that carry the power in bulk from the plants to populated areas, and distribution lines, which are the smaller, low voltage lines running alongside roads and to your house. Those lines are connected by substations, which turn the higher voltage transmission lines to lower voltage distribution lines for safer and more effective distribution to customers. Transmission lines can be very large and impact a wide footprint, located in what's called an easement. This is where the property owner maintains ownership of the property, but signs over rights to the utility company for a piece of their land for the line in exchange for compensation. The biggest concerns I've heard about transmission lines involve the aesthetics, the property value impact, and the health concerns from the electromagnetic fields. Transmission lines are large and come in many different forms, like big towers or poles. You really don't see them running on someone's property in a neighborhood, as they are more likely to butt up to the edge of a property. But there are some neighborhoods that were built around existing lines that left green space for them. They are unsightly, but they are quiet neighbors, and it guarantees that you won't have something else you may not want developed in its place. The power company also regularly cuts trees in and around the line, which can cause people heartache as well. There are property value impacts if they run directly on your property, which is mostly seen with property owners that have larger, more rural plots of land. There are indirect property value impacts if, say, a line runs directly behind your property. This may not reflect in an appraisal, but it could impact your ability to sell the property given some people's apprehension about living near power lines. This could reduce demand and thus the price. The largest concern stems around the electromagnetic fields power lines produce, as there are debates of that to this day. EMF is present in anything that uses electricity, such as your TV or your microwave. The EMF from a power line is high when you're directly next to the power line, but at the edge of an easement and even further at an adjacent house, the EMF measurements are nearly negligible. You are much more likely to get high EMF exposures from standing too close to your microwave than if a transmission line ran directly behind your property. So unless you live in a tree house that's built right next to the line, there is no evidence that EMF will impact a neighboring house. One last concern I've heard for those who live very close to a transmission line is how likely are they to fall over? And there's an incredibly low probability of that happening. As like any other building or structure, transmission lines are designed per their own set of regulated guidelines and safety factors as dictated by the National Electric Safety Code, so you can rest easy. Distribution lines are the smaller, typically wood pole structures that run along roadways, and many times they're underground. Like transmission lines, they typically run in easements on people's properties or along the city right-of-way. And if you're in a neighborhood, just about everyone has easements and or a road right-of-way for the first 10 to 15 feet of your property, where power lines, water lines, sewer, internet, and much more are permitted to run their facilities. In many neighborhoods, you won't notice the distribution lines as they may run underground, and all you'll see is a 3-foot green box near the front of your property that changes the voltage down to the levels you see inside your house. The EMF from these lines is also negligible, as the voltage is much lower than transmission lines, making it a non-factor for the public, unless you decide to set up a tent and live on top of those green transformer boxes. I really don't get too many questions about distribution lines. Other than that, they're ugly for those that have above ground lines in their neighborhoods. So what about substations? Most people don't know what a substation is or looks like unless you have one right by you. And as mentioned, they are needed to lower the voltage of lines and also split the lines for distribution as well. Substations are fenced-in facilities that have multiple lines running to them and various pieces of equipment inside. They are built on land either owned or in rare cases leased by the power company. The power company does everything it can to minimize the visual impacts of substations on its neighbors, and in many cases, specific towns have requirements to maintain certain buffers to adjacent properties as well as aesthetics. What you can expect from a substation is they're also a pretty quiet neighbor. There will be a low-level hum that will most likely not be audible from neighboring properties, especially if the utility kept or planted a tree buffer. The substation always has lights on, but are specifically designed to shine into the substation and not at the neighboring properties. Do not expect any significant traffic or work to occur at these stations, as once they are built, you may see a truck there once a month or so for general maintenance, but that's it unless there's a power outage. For those who live by one, it usually does mean that you can expect better power reliability, as those closer to substations are typically not impacted from outages that happen further down the line. There are really no EMF concerns for neighbors from a substation. As properties are so far away from the actual equipment, the EMF readings at the edge of a substation property are essentially non-existent. Alright, so the biggest piece of advice I would give to anyone purchasing a home to avoid impacts from substations and power lines is to look at what surrounds your property. Surveys are essential, as they will identify who the neighboring property owners are, but also looking online at GIS maps will reveal your surroundings. If you see an open green space behind your property, know who owns that property. Is it dedicated neighborhood green space? Can it be developed on? If you see the owner is a power company, it is a very high chance that a substation will be built on that property in the future. There are unfortunately examples where people buy homes that back up to beautiful woods, but found out after a substation was planned there. And they're upset that those trees are torn down, as you'll be surprised how large substation footprints can be. Power lines are not quite as obvious, but GIS maps typically have layers to show existing easements that you can check. You can also visually check to see if you live in an area where a linear power line could be routed in the future. For example, if you back up to houses in a neighborhood, transmission lines are not allowed to run through owner-occupied back or front yards, so you're safe. But if you have a large plot of land behind you that is not as heavily populated around it, there could be a slight chance of future impacts. Trained real estate agents should be able to inform you on those chances as well. And with multiple family members in this business, this is something I always check for when looking at a property. If this video was helpful, please give us a like and subscribe to support our channel. If you need any real estate assistance, please don't hesitate to reach out. So many have already contacted us from these videos, and we really appreciate you. I'm Allison Wojnarowski with the W Real Estate Group, and thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video.